Hey, it's Mark Weiss. When most physicians think of antitrust law enforcement, they think of it in the civil context, but we can parse antitrust law in several ways, actually in, I guess, 4 quadrants. There's civil enforcement of antitrust law, and there's criminal enforcement of antitrust law. There's also antitrust law that falls into the category of price fixing, and there's antitrust law that falls into the category of monopolization. Generally, in terms of controlling prices, one thinks of controlling prices of a product that's being sold. So, for example, competing in terms of fixing the price that 2, say, radiology groups are offering to carriers. In other words, agreeing that they're not going to sell their services for less than X dollars per unit, sort of tying their pricing together. But the federal government has been alleging in a criminal context, several cases around the country, a more novel theory. The first case to come to trial just did. It's now April 2022 when I'm recording this, and charges against DaVita, the large dialysis provider, and its former chief executive officer, resulted in an acquittal. But the charges are interesting. The charges there are that DaVita and executives had conspired with competitors, including SCA, Surgical Care Affiliates, the large outpatient healthcare company, as well as at least one other company called Hazel, as I recall, and that the purpose of the conspiracy was to basically agree not to hire their co-conspirators' executives, at least without some sort of notification to the other. I can't remember all of the allegations, but it had to do with restricting the ability of executives to move jobs. As I mentioned, DaVita and its former CEO were acquitted. There is a case against SCA moving forward in Texas, and we'll see if SCA and any other defendants named in that case are as lucky. But what's interesting here is the rather broad scope that the government is alleging here, and basically a number of novel theories that relate to the restriction of the labor market. This is a result of the Biden administration's abhorrence of covenants not to compete, the same theory behind covenants not to compete, that providers of labor should not be restricted when it comes to moving jobs. But it's a very interesting concept in connection with local physician groups. Many groups do have covenants not to compete. Groups have in the past had agreements somewhat similar to the type of arrangement that DaVita and SCA are being accused of. So pay attention to this. If the government is successful in one of these cases, it's going to continue to ramp up looking for other cases to try until perhaps there's a split among federal circuits, resulting in a case that goes to the U.S. Supreme Court. Keep your eyes open. It's a very novel way of approaching federal antitrust law, and perhaps it also portends other novel ways of prosecuting, not just going after what the government alleges is misbehavior civilly, but going after it criminally. It certainly chills certain, quote, anti-competitive action.